The Rialta Owners Group of America is proud to present another Tech Talk video. The Rialta Owners Group of America is a non-for-profit hobbyist site and group which retains all rights and privileges to this video. Hi, I'm Alex from the Rialta Owners Group of America. There is lots of different questions from people with regards to what is the proper tire size, what is the proper tire load, what tires can I use on my Rialta? Does the size of the tire, depending on where it's at, really matter? Well, the owner's manual answers a lot of those questions, and there's some straightforward comments that are inside, given right from the engineers and the manufacturers of the units we all love to own and drive. But in order to understand exactly what they're talking about, it might help to understand how to read a tire to begin with. All tires have labels that are embossed in the sidewalls that are done during manufacturing, so you know exactly the kind of tire you're looking at, and a few simple explanations will help you understand what all those numbers mean. Let's start there. We put together this chart to help explain how to understand the information on your tire. This, of course, represents our sidewall with the information on it. This is if we cut the tire through and we looked at it from the end. This represents the DOT serial number, which is usually along the edge of the tire where the rim will connect on the inside wall of the tire, and then the tire on a rim itself. Let's start with the information that's on the sidewall. In this case, it starts off with 195. Which is the tire size that you'll see most commonly on our 1996 to 2001s. 195 is a measurement in metric. That means that the distance from sidewall to sidewall is 195 millimeters. Now, this is what the manufacturer intended this to be. If you put on wider rims, this number is not accurate. So the second number is called aspect ratio. Let's make that simple. It's a percentage. If you see the number 70 after 195, it means that the height of the sidewall is 70% of whatever the width is. So in this case, we have 195 for our distance from sidewall to sidewall, and it's 70% of that is what the height of our sidewall is going to be. The R refers to radial construction. Radial construction on a tire makes it so that the tread and the sidewalls can move independently. If you've heard the term bias ply, this is a type of construction that is used for heavy-duty tires, things like payloaders and dump trucks. In that particular type of construction, bias ply, the sidewalls and the treads work as one. They don't work independently. So you don't have issues with sidewall deflection because you're dealing with heavier loads and a different type of utilization. For ours, we want that sidewall deflection, some people call it tire roll, so that we have it engineered specifically for our vehicle. In our case, it is for the radial construction. 15 is a measurement in inches. That means the distance of the center hole, your diameter from one side to the other, that is a 15-inch rim that this tire fits on. If it's a 16, it's a 16-inch rim. The letter code following it stands for commercial. There's other tires that will have prefixes on them. If you see a P195, that means it's for a passenger vehicle. If you see an LT195, that means it's for a light truck, something that's not meant to carry very heavy loads. In our case, we have C. And when we see the letter C on the side of our tires, it means that there is construction in our sidewalls that can hold a larger load than a regular tire. Passenger tires and light truck tires are not strong enough to be on our Rialtas, or most Class Cs as they are. Now the 104 is actually a weight code. There's a chart for the weight code on tires that will tell us what all the different weight code numbers mean. In this particular case, a 104 can hold 1,984 pounds maximum capacity as per the manufacturer of the tire. So the 104, for us, it's 1,984. The rear tires are 109s. The 109 tires can handle up to 2,271 pounds. Why? Because there's more weight in the back than there is in the front. Ergo, we have the larger tire in the back than we do in the front. The H is a speed code rating. Again, that comes off another chart. The speed code indicates that per the manufacturer, what consistent top end speed the tire can handle without blowing out or coming apart. On the chart, the H tells us that it can handle up to 130 miles per hour. If there is no speed code on here, well, obviously we're always going to navigate to the road conditions, to the posted speed limit, and to our abilities. So as long as we stay with that, we should be pretty good. Understanding the age of your tire is also pretty important, so let's talk about these DOT codes. These are embossed and they're changed every week at the factory so that you know the week of manufacture of that particular tire. So when you see this label, and again, it's on the inside sidewall of the tire, it's going to have a series of numbers. The last four numbers are the numbers that will tell us when this was made. The first two of those four numbers, in this case 03, means it was manufactured in the third week of that year. And the 18 is the last two numbers of the year. So the third week of 2018. Prior to the year 2000, they used a symbol, which is a triangle, which stands for the 1990s. So if you saw 279 and then a triangle on the side of your tire, that means that it was manufactured in the 27th week of 1999. And if you have tires that are this old, you definitely need to get those replaced anyways, because tires do wear out and expire as materials break down. Let's go back to the chart that shows our sidewall aspect ratio. This is the tire that's cut away, so you're looking at it from the end. If we're talking about the 1996 to 2001 Rialta tires, we're dealing with front tires where it's 195 millimeters from side to side on the front, and the sidewall is 70% of that. The rear tires are 205 millimeters from side to side, and the sidewall aspect ratio, again, is 70% of that, which means that the sidewalls on the front tires are smaller than the sidewalls on the rear tires. That makes the rear tires taller than the fronts. Anytime you add distance on the sidewall in a radial tire, you increase the amount of sidewall deflection that you can have. That's often referred to as tire roll when you're making a corner, which way that's particularly going to go. So the taller the tire, the more roll there is. Well, if you have a wider tire on the back and you have a little bit more roll, you have more tire gripping the road if you have good tread. In the front, you have slightly shorter, so there's a slightly decreased roll. This helps you with accuracy and cornering and so forth. So when we're dealing with these particular tires, we need to understand that the taller the tire, the more side roll there is when you're talking about a radial ply tire. There's more to this. We have to talk about caster and camber on your front end. Now we're going to talk about the alignment of your vehicle. This directly affects how your tires are going to manage the roadway and how you're going to be able to control your vehicle. The first of the two adjustments we're going to talk about is called camber. Camber is the pitch of the tire as you're looking at it from front to back. Either the tops are in or the tops are out. Tops in is called negative camber. Tops out is positive camber. Negative camber is becoming more and more popular in street racing vehicles because it allows you to have a great deal more control at higher speeds going around corners and curves. However, it does wear out the inside tread on your tires and prematurely. The other problem that you have is if you lose one tire, there's no resisting force to the other, so that one will force the vehicle's front end off to that side. Now, if you try to steer in to compensate, now you're dealing with a smaller amount of tread contact to the bottom, and it's going to try to turn in, and it can cause body roll on the vehicle itself, creating a rollover situation, which is something none of us want to do, especially in a 6,000-pound vehicle. The other one is called caster. Now, to understand caster, just think of, well, a caster. When the caster is positive and it's in this direction, where this particular post is to the rear, it wants to keep the vehicle straight. The only time that it's going to turn is if you turn that post, and then it will go around. If you have your caster in the opposite direction, where that post is to the front, it'll just go anywhere it wants without resistance. When the camber is set to positive camber, it helps keep the wheels straight and on the road. So you have camber and caster. The other thing we need to look at is called dog tracking. If you have the front wheels straight in alignment with each other and the rear wheels straight in alignment with each other, but they're not aligned rear to front and front to rear so that it's square, you create a condition where you're dog tracking, where the rear of your vehicle is off to one side or the other because they're not aligned square to the body. This requires a specialist to perform this alignment. It's extremely important that if you carry routine loads, you got the same stuff on your vehicle at all times, or most often. Take it to be aligned while the load is on it. If this is the way you drive most of the time, this is how we want to figure out if your vehicle is properly aligned to carry that load. We'll talk a little bit more about the angles of your vehicle with regard to the air springs momentarily. When the engineers at Winnebago originally designed the Rialta, they chose the tire size based upon the need and the safety of the vehicle. If you go to your owner's manual, it says very clearly, when replacing tires, use the same size, load range, and construction type, radial, as the original tires installed on the vehicle. Use of any other size or type tire may affect ride, handling, speedometer, odometer calibration, vehicle ground clearance, and tire clearance to the body and chassis. If replacing only a single tire, it should be paired on the same axle with the least worn tire of the other three. It spells it out fairly clearly. If you choose to put the larger tires from the rear on the front, so you have 4-match tires, you may be adding the convenience of, gee, I always have the same size tires, so if I get a flat, I'm okay. Well, first off, if your tires are worn enough where you're going to get a flat, you should have replaced that already. Secondly, if there's damage to the tire and you're driving on the road, well, there's a second issue there as well. Third, if you're replacing the tires when they're worn and you're dealing with the same expenses in the same tires, there should be no conflict. When you're talking about clearances, they're talking about from the top of the tire to the next piece of body above it. You put a larger tire on the front. It was never intended by Winnebago or by Volkswagen to have a taller tire. The rear tires are a full 9% taller than the front tires. So when you move those up front, you're taking up that space. That's one thing to consider. The second thing to consider is the taller tire, as we were talking about sidewall deflection earlier, increases. So now you have sway and roll up front. You have a taller sidewall, you're going to have more sidewall deflection. So it's not going to have the same control as it's going to have with the shorter tire that was originally installed on your Rialta. When you're talking about road safety, you're talking about wet conditions, you're talking about having to make sudden stops because, let's face it, a 6,000-pound vehicle doesn't stop in 30 inches. We need some room there. We need to make sure that we have as much tire of the right size and not worn or damaged on the road so that we can prevent serious injuries or worse. Let's take a minute and talk about tread depth and wear. The treads on your tires are designed to displace water on the road, snow on the road, any sort of debris that might be on the road, but they're only effective when they're at their maximum. As we use our tires, we obviously wear down the tread depth. The closer it gets to a hazard point, the less control we're going to have on our vehicle, not just in an emergency situation, but in normal everyday driving. When tread depth is at its full size and it's going through water, these treads actually push the water off the road and into the treads. And as the tire spins around, it shoots that water away so that you have maximum contact here, literally where the rubber meets the road. As you slowly wear down, and you have less displacement for that water to go. So less water going into the tread means more water underneath the tread. This is where the hydroplaning risk comes in. Hydroplaning is where you have a layer of water between the road and your tire, and there's virtually no control. It may just as well be ice. So the smaller your tread depth is, the less water is being displaced, the more likely it is that you're riding on top of the water, and if you need to stop or steer, you're not going to be able to in the manner that you're used to. This is an air pressure gauge. All it does is it measures the pressure in your tire. The one end goes on to the tip of the filler nozzle. You push down, and the gauge slides out, and it tells you how many pounds per square inch are in your tire. If it's too high, you use the other end to push down on that same valve to release a little bit of pressure, and then check it again. But there's something a lot of folks don't know. You see on the end, there's a little section that's popping out on there. That's minimum safe tread depth on a standard vehicle. We're not talking about big trucks and Caterpillar dozers and dump trucks. We're talking about things that we use on the highway, including our RVs. If you take that tip and you slide it in and it doesn't hit the end, you got plenty of tread. But if you hit it and you see some of that poking out, that means you're below the minimum safe tread depth as recommended by the Department of Transportation and the Federal Highway Safety Administration. It means it's time to get some new tires. So carrying the tire pressure gauge isn't just for checking the pressure in your tires or in your air shocks. It's also for checking for minimum tread depth. We've talked about the air springs before in the Rialta. When the Rialta was designed to give extra support to the back end, where most of the weight's going to be the majority of the time, they added air springs inside that rear suspension to help level the load and keep the vehicle from bottoming out or the tires from hitting the insides of the wheel wells. Oftentimes, you'll see people that are going down the road where those air springs are overfilled. Air springs should be adjusted to level the vehicle when it's loaded or when it's unloaded, depending on how you're driving it at the time. They need to be adjusted for the vehicle weight for that particular trip. If you go to a campsite and you offload a lot of stuff and you've emptied all your water and the back end is up higher, you need to adjust that down. It's spelled out very clearly in every owner's manual. The minimum inflation pounds per square inch is 10. The maximum inflation is 100 before you cause damage to the air springs. The average recommended fill pounds per square inch for those air springs per Winnebago is 20 to 30 pounds PSI. No more and no less. The reason why can be explained very simply. Did you ever try to run with a full wheelbarrow? You pick up that back end and you're running with it, and as long as you're straight and you don't have to dodge any obstacles, you're good. The second you try to make a corner, I guarantee you that wheelbarrow is going over and over and over. And whatever you had inside is going to get destroyed. In the case of a Rialta, you're talking human lives. So, keeping the vehicle level is the purpose of those air springs. The easiest way to do this is when it's not under load, take a look at the side of your vehicle. If it appears level and the PSI that's in there is between 20 and 30, you're great. If you load it and it's dipped down in the back, adjust the PSI up. If you're overloaded, it's going to take significantly more than 30 PSI to bring it level. Just make sure you don't exceed the maximum and make sure that you're weighing the items going on board. Most people still have that chart that's glued inside their closet door that tells them their minimum and maximum ratings on axles and so forth. Always refer to that and know what you're carrying. If you look at the side of your Rialta and you look like a Hot Wheels car going down the street, you're that wheelbarrow. Combine that along with any tire wear or caster or camber issues that you may have. You may very likely be the next victim in a rollover, and there'll be just one less Rialta on the road. So, per the manufacturer, the recommended rating of PSI, your pounds per square inch, in those air springs is 20 to 30. Don't be a wheelbarrow going down the highway. If I see you coming and the back end's up in the air, I'm taking the next exit and watching the news. We all enjoy customizing our Rialtas. It makes it more personal, more part of us. Whether it's changing carpet into flooring or just changing the carpet, maybe it's a better sound system. Maybe it's a better TV or a better microwave. All sorts of little things that make the vehicle personal that help us enjoy it more but don't affect its performance. When you start changing around the things that were put into place by the engineers and the original designers, you're changing things that were put that way for maximum safety, maximum use, and maximum life of your vehicle. So if you want to change things around, stick with the things that make the vehicle personal. As far as the mechanics and the actual engineering of the vehicle, stick with the manufacturer's directions and recommendations. As always, our owner's manual is a great source of information. If you have questions about the Volkswagen aspect of your Rialta, see your Volkswagen dealer service department. If you have questions about the Winnebago aspect, well, then consult Winnebago. I'm Alex for the Rialta Owners Group of America. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you soon.